The 49ers reversed another huge narrative. I'm going to tell you all about it in this episode. Plus, we're going to talk about deadline day and what this means for the 49ers going forward. Hit subscribe if you're looking for 49ers content like this. Want to give you guys a quick heads up on why I've been missing for the last few days. Like many of you guys, the great game of football was shown to me by my dad, and two of his favorite sports were hockey and football. Both of those that I picked up a huge affinity for. He played high school football before enlisting in the military. Unfortunately, last week, he passed away, and that's why I haven't been doing any videos these last couple days. But my dad grew up near the St. Louis area, and he rooted for the Rams during the whole St. Louis Rams era. He also rooted for the Raiders. Don't even ask. I'm not even going to tell you that whole story. But as you can imagine, there was some trash talk in our family. Anyways, apologies for not being around for the last few days, but let's talk Niners. Firstly, we got to get to the big question on the day today. How are you guys feeling about what the 49ers chose not to do today? They did not buy. They did not sell. The 49ers chose to hold. How are you feeling about the 49ers holding given all of the injuries this team has taken? If you told me before the season, on paper, the Niners are not going to be a big dealer on the deadline day or particularly trading for a player, acquiring talent, I would not have been entirely surprised by that. If you told me all the injuries they would have had going into this point, up to this point, losing Michael Williams, losing Nick Bosa, losing Fred Warner, of course, already, I would have expected them to make a move, and I was expecting them to make a move. No move was made. I understand where they're coming from on it. I mean, to the best of our knowledge, as any fan could understand what situation they're in there. But I think what we're seeing from the 49ers is a lot. They're telling you that they're banking on their coaching. They're telling you that they're banking on their young bucks getting experience. They're telling you that they're banking on playing the long game with this team, that their strategy is not short-term, it's long-term. And as much as I would have loved to move, and every fan always wants to see a big move made, clearly to the 49ers, there was nobody out there that was worth, including this guy right here, nobody out there worth the asking price that teams were trying to get, which I think brings me to the first part of this conversation. Now, we're going to be getting to, in a moment here, that huge reversed narrative. I promise we're going to get there. But we're already kind of uncovering a little bit of a narrative shift. This offseason, we heard the shift in the way that Shanahan and Lynch talk about this team and talked about the future, and they were honest about how they were trying to go all in last year's offseason to kind of try and keep the squad together for one last go at it. It failed miserably. The Niners decided they were going to change course a little bit, start recreating and start retooling for the future. Of course, and I got a lot of beef for this, so I want to clarify this. Of course, the 49ers and every team in the NFL, nobody's giving up on winning and trying to make the playoffs and trying to make the Super Bowl. Nobody ever gives up in the NFL. You don't sack in the NFL, okay? For obvious reasons, but namely the fact that every single person on that team and in that front office would like to keep having their job, right? Most people don't want to get fired. I'm sure there's a couple out there that are okay with it. But in general, these teams, these players, even the ones on bad teams, they want to perform so that they can be trade bait if their team doesn't get better. Everyone has incentive to perform in the NFL. You don't just throw games. It's not like that. That's just, I'm telling you how I see it. You can disagree as always, okay? What I'm not saying is that the 49ers have no interest in winning the Super Bowl this year. What I am saying is that the 49ers don't have an all-in mentality in giving up all of the future for this season right here. And I can respect that. You don't have to like it, but I think we can all agree that it's a respectable position to take, that they're thinking long-term. Now, there are some huge risks in either strategy. We saw the Rams pull it off several years ago where they basically just said, we're going all in, and it looked for a minute like this was going to be the future. Then you look at how the Eagles are doing business, very similar to how the 49ers have been doing business, minus some of the trade acquisitions we did not have this season. Okay, they're in that super high. I think you're always in a Super Bowl window, but they're in like that real tight Super Bowl window, similar to how the 49ers felt last year, just being that close to winning the Super Bowl. All of that being said, We're learning about how the 49ers are seeing their chances this year, what they're willing to kind of put on the line for this year. And it looks to me like the 49ers are saying the long game, the next 2 years game is far more important to me than trying to go all in without Nick Bosa, without Fred Warner, without now Mykel Williams. We're trying to go all in without Brock Purdy for the majority of the season. We're trying to go all in right now on this team, on this roster, on this opportunity. Now, it doesn't mean they don't put everything on the line, but it does mean they're not willing to trade away the future in order to make it happen right now. The Niners are doing something really special, you guys. They're on the cusp of something really magnificent. We're going to uncover that more, of course. But the 49ers have had 2 drafts now where they've had some decent return and they've got a lot of experience. They're getting a lot of experience out of last year's class and this year's class. Now, none of those picks, we don't know for sure if they've hit yet. I mean, Dominic Puni sure looks like a hit, but even his early form this season would kind of lead you to question, was he a draft hit? We'll see. You got to give these guys some time to really be confident whether or not these players are hits or not hits. All I'm trying to get across, the main point I want to get out there is if you can string together 3 drafts in a row paired with some solid players, some solid pillars that are culture builders, you have a very, very dangerous team on your hands. That's what I think. Now let's get to some of the news here because I feel like some of y'all have been waiting, and I'm sorry about that. So the Bears and the 49ers, this just came in from Jordan Schultz, confirming kind of what we already knew. But the Bears and the 49ers were among the teams that tried to trade for Jets pass rusher Jermaine Johnson. New York wanted a second-round pick, so Chicago pivoted, and San Francisco ultimately stayed put. So they held. Not going to buy, not going to sell, we're holding. A move to the 49ers would have reunited Johnson with Robert Saleh, which I think is another way of saying Robert Saleh knew this guy, and if he was out there willing to go put a second-rounder on him, then they would have done it. He was there. But the 49ers set a goal. At the beginning of the offseason, they reevaluated at the end of last year. They got rid of Deebo Samuel. They let him go. They started to they let Dre Greenlaw go. They let Talanoa Hufanga go. They started retooling and figuring out what the future of this team looked like. And despite the fact that it's hard to watch Javon Hargrave, it's hard to watch other guys that could still be on your team go and produce for other teams when you're looking at your roster so depleted. It is hard, but they're playing the long game. This from David Lombardi, very interesting point. Had the 49ers spent a 1 on Trey Hendrickson or a 2 on Jermaine Johnson, they would have been alone in their willingness to do so. Today showed us that the entire NFL wasn't willing to overpay for D linemen, except Jerry Jones. One exception with Williams. But I'm not going to get on that Cowboys train right now because that will derail us faster than anything else, the Cowboys. So here's your 49ers defensive lineman for the rest of the season. I mean, barring, obviously, free agency moves, things like that. Bryce Huff, Sam Okuanu, and Robert Beal are your starting edge rushers. You have Keon White, who can play kind of a little bit of both, but he's technically an edge. Cleveland Ferrell, and then Kalia Davis, Jordan Elliott, Alfred Collins, Kevin Givens, CJ West, your defensive tackles. And then your practice squad guys that we got to not forget about, like Evan Anderson. I'm so sorry, forget who it was in the comments last week saying don't forget about Evan Anderson. You're absolutely right. You know who you are. And then Sebastian Valdez, Hulk, was another guy that looked really promising in preseason this year. So those are guys who have not yet been elevated at all. So you've got several game elevations available there for those guys as well. So guys that can contribute to this team, not world beaters, I'm not trying to spin a narrative that says, look at how great this 49ers defensive line is. I did not say that. I'm not saying that. I will not say that. This 49ers defensive line is massively missing talent. You cannot look at this line and be like, yeah, we're all right without Bosa. We're all right without Mykel Williams. We're all right. Like, you can't say, well, you can say we're all right. You can't say that, like, we're just like this top of the line defensive line. But you can at least admit that, like, these are the guys that the 49ers are going to ride with. And they're is most definitely potential on this defensive line. I'll go that way. I'll say that. When you look at the rookie snap count percentage, this is what I was getting at earlier in the video. The 49ers are 5th in the NFL, going from one of the oldest teams in the NFL just a few short weeks ago to now being a team that is playing 14.6% of the rookie snaps in the NFL. And this is coming after a game where they had their lowest rookie snap count this year. So they're getting a lot of contribution from rookies this year. They're getting a lot of contribution from second-year players from last year's draft. That is a huge advantage. You still have to grow. You still have to get better. Ronaldo Green played really, really well for the most part on Sunday. So there's a lot of good still coming. Dominic Purdy looked much more like himself on Sunday. So I'm excited about where the team is heading, regardless of the fact that there's still going to be an uphill battle. There's for sure going to be an uphill battle. One thing, this from David Lombardi, great point. One thing that's gone very right for the 49ers defense is the run defense improvement. This was an area the Niners could not stop the run. Tatum Bethune, by the way, I don't think he's in this. Let me look. No, he's not in this tweet. Tatum Bethune needs to be shouted out for how he has stepped up these last couple games. He's a guy that some people didn't even know who he was when he came in for Fred Warner. And you got to give the guy some credit for what he's doing so far. But we'll keep going. Sorry. 2024, number 29th in run defense. So far this year, number 6 in run defense. They've done this with a combo of Saleh plus youth infusion, way more speed and hunger in that phase. It's a very important dynamic for San Francisco to preserve and build as they reinforce the foundation of this next 3-year window. Hence the focus on keeping draft picks unless the ideal trade came along today. Maybe one came close, but the ideal op in the 49ers' eyes, like Keon White last week, obviously didn't materialize. There you go. And it makes complete sense. Which brings me to this huge reversal. This huge reversal in overall narrative. And we're already 12 minutes in here. I'm gonna clean this up here real quick. Okay. But the narrative around Kyle Shanahan is a very, very funny narrative. It's like at the beginning of the season, everybody forgets who our coaches are. Everybody forgets we got Robert Saleh. Everybody forgets we have Kyle Shanahan still. And everyone starts to doubt what this team is capable of, including one guy who I know you guys are going to write him off, but he's not a nobody. Colin Cowherd is a big voice in sports radio, and he does have a lot of really bad takes, often around the 49ers. By the way, while we're talking about Colin Cowherd, how's your take on the Arizona Cardinals right now? Going not so well for you, Colin Cowherd. But here's something I can't agree with. He said this today. My coach of the year is Kyle Shanahan. He's winning with peanut brittle, baling wire, and duct tape. They have no healthy players. The 49ers are 6-3 with a backup quarterback. Third down offense, despite a bad offensive line, is top 3 in the league. Basically, the offense is Christian McCaffrey and cross your fingers. This is one of the greatest coaching jobs you'll ever see. They play the Rams this weekend, who are fully staffed and ready to go, yet it's only field goal spread, meaning the Rams are only favored by 3 points. Okay, let's just briefly touch on the fact that Colin Cowherd overlooked the San Francisco 49ers more than anybody else I've found when it comes to sports talk that are like actual real names in the business. He overlooked the 49ers more than anybody. Did not believe this team could do anything special. Did not believe this is with Fred Warner. This is with Nick Bosa. This is with Mykel Williams. This is before Brock Purdy goes down for the majority of the season so far. This is before George Kittle goes down in one of the first couple drives. He completely overlooked the 49ers and their ability to produce. He completely overlooked Christian McCaffrey. What kind of Christian McCaffrey we're going to get? I told you a million times, we're going to see a better Christian McCaffrey this year. We're going to see a very good, not 2023. We might never see that. I'm not even going to comment on whether or not we're going to see a 2023 Christian McCaffrey, but what we're seeing right now is pretty darn effective. We can all agree on that. This is a pretty good Christian McCaffrey, right? So all of that to say, we have to pay attention. If we're going to talk about these guys when they have really bad takes and we're going to throw them under the bus, let's make sure we also pay attention when their narrative shifts, because you're turning doubters to believers. That is a big shift. When you're seeing people who are feeling really down on your team that are now really starting to think very highly of your team. It tells you that even the lowest lows have now turned and looked toward the right perspective, in my opinion, which is that Kyle Shanahan's doing a great job. And this 49ers team is more than just Christian McCaffrey and cross your fingers. But it's not completely unfair to say this 49ers team without Brandon Aiyuk, without George Kittle for most of the season, they've had to find ways to be successful. But let's not also forget about guys like Jake Tonjes, who's played a very important role. Guys like Kendrick Bourne, who's played a very important role this season. Demarcus Robinson, who has not played an important role, but you expected him to play an important role. So the 49ers have done a fantastic job to be 6-3. I am deeply concerned about what they're going to be able to do this season without bringing in a big reinforcement on the defensive line, which I felt like they needed from the day that Nick Bosa went down. To lose him, to lose that pillar, and not go out there and get a big-name dude, not a body, not even a potential starter, like a genuine, bona fide starter that would start on any team in the NFL. That's the kind of talent that I felt like we needed. But I understand that the organization has made their stance and how they're going to cover this, and I respect it. Let me know what you guys think in the comments. As always, you guys, we're 5 days away from the Los Angeles Rams, a team that my dad would have loved to root against me on. You know what? This is going to be a crazy game. This is going to be a tough game. The Rams were absolutely embarrassed. In whose house? Levi South's house, right? I tried to make that sound clever in the way that it came out, and I should have just said Levi South or our house. I don't know, something like that, but whatever. And they're going to be coming up to Levi's, and they're going to be wanting to make a big statement. And the 49ers are going to have every opportunity in the world to show the world they did not need to make a big trade on the deadline day, that this team is what their record says they are. And they're not a team that's going to just fall over and lose now. We'll have to see. They're going to have to prove it on the field. As always, appreciate you guys and hope you guys have a fantastic rest of your Tuesday night.